Johnny Talk Sports in with the wild card predictions, and I really hope that this weekend definitely puts the Wild in wild card weekend. We've got 6 great matchups this week, so let's not waste any more time. Let's get to the wild card weekend predictions. If you want to check out my playoff power rankings, where I assess all 14 teams in the playoffs, I'll put the link to that video in the description box down below, so you can check that out if you haven't already, to see where I rank these 14 teams as we head into the playoffs in what is the most chaotic NFL season of all time. So, first matchup in wildcard weekend is the Colts and the Bills. And this matchup, I think it could be much closer than what the experts think. I think that this game could be very close. And I think the Colts have the running game to stay in this one. Because we saw last year how the Colts beat the Chiefs in their high-powered offense. They just ran the ball consistently, keeping the offense off on the sidelines for the Chiefs. And I think they do the same thing with the Bills. I do think here that the Bills will win this game. I just think it's going to be very close. I think the Bills are going to have to earn this one. So behind Josh Allen, Stephon Diggs, what the big matchup is Stephon Diggs versus Colts secondary. Because throughout the season, we have seen the Colts have one of the best defenses in the league. While the Colts offense, it hasn't necessarily been really dominated by Phillip Rivers. It's been dominated by the running game led by rookie Jonathan Taylor. But I think the Bills pick up a very close 34-27 win over Indianapolis. I think the Colts are going to hang in there for quite some time in this matchup. Moving on to our next matchup between the Rams and the Seahawks. The Rams punched their ticket into the playoffs last week with a win over the Cardinals, while the Seahawks, it's just been a tale of two seasons for the Seahawks. I mean, at the beginning, Russell Wilson looked good, but the defense hasn't. And then there were a couple of games where Russell Wilson didn't look as well as he was in the beginning of the season, but their defense seemed to improve. Now for the Rams, is Jared Goff going to be able to play in this game? Or are they going to have to go with backup quarterback John Wolford for this playoff game? And right now I'm seeing that it's being considered a long shot for Jared Goff to play this week. However, I feel like the Rams can get it done even without Jared Goff. I just think with their run-first offense led by Cam Akers and Malcolm Brown, I just think that they can use the run to really melt the clock out and keep Russell Wilson on the sidelines. And if you can take advantage of Cooper Kupp and that Seahawks secondary, because Cooper Kupp had a big first game against the Seahawks earlier this season. So if Cooper Kupp can get going in this matchup, I think it could be a long afternoon for this Seahawks team. And you know what? Even if Jared Goff can't play in this game, the Rams defense, the best in the league, I think they can carry the Rams in this matchup. I think your magic number for this game, if you're the Rams, I'd say about 20. Because I am confident that this Rams defense can hold Seattle to about 17-20. So maybe 20, 21 points, that could get the job done. And I think they will. I think the Rams pull off the upset in this matchup. I'm going to say 23-17. Next, we have the Buccaneers and the Washington football team. The Buccaneers back in the playoffs. Tom Brady proved that he still has it. Even though he's 43, he still knows how to play quarterback and be one of the best quarterbacks of all time, proving that age is just a number. While the Washington football team, what a season they've been through. I mean, just a few months ago, they were the Redskins. And then FedEx just demanded that the Redskins change their name. but they couldn't come up with a name, so they just called themselves the Washington Football Team. And head coach Ron Rivera had to take IVs at halftime to ensure that he can finish coaching the game. And he beat cancer in the middle of the current pandemic that we're in. And Alex Smith is the top candidate for Comeback Player of the Year. So what a season that the Washington Football Team has gone through. For the Buccaneers, what is the status of Mike Evans? As Mike Evans left the Week 17 matchup against the Falcons with an apparent knee injury. While Washington, they do have a really strong defense. As I said in my playoff assessment, that the Washington Football Team, they have one of the best defenses in this playoffs. But can the defense carry the Washington Football Team in this matchup? To beat Tom Brady's kryptonite is a talented defense. Now, this Washington Football Team defense is very talented, but they're inexperienced. And for many of the players on the Washington Football Team, this is their first taste of the playoffs. You could say the same thing with the Buccaneers, but there's more experience with Tom Brady in the playoffs than there is Alex Smith. And if you want to beat Tom Brady, you've got to get some pressure on him. If you can get past the Bucs O-line, put some pressure on him, get some hits on him, then you got a shot to win the game, because it's going to make Tom Brady uncomfortable and force him to get rid of the ball quickly. I think the football team, they make this a game, but I think the Buccaneers win this in the very end. I'm going to say very close game here. I'm going to say 24-20 Buccaneers. Our next matchup is the Ravens and the Titans. Now, we saw these two teams play each other in the regular season. The Titans won in overtime, the Derrick Henry game-winning 29-yard rushing touchdown. While last season in the playoffs, Lamar Jackson had over 500 yards of total offense, and the Ravens still couldn't get it done. That's mainly because the Titans, they took advantage of some of the mistakes that the Ravens made in that game. And Derrick Henry, once again, carried them in that division round just like he did in the regular season. So, if the Ravens defense, if they can account for Derrick Henry, if they can hold him to less than 75 rushing yards, I think the Ravens would definitely win this game. But I think Derrick Henry is going to have himself a big game in this one. Because last two times that the Titans have faced the Ravens, Derrick Henry has dominated and proven to be a difference maker. And someone else has to step up other than Derrick Henry in these playoffs if the Titans want to get back to the AFC Championship game. And Ryan Tannehill has been playing very well. I mean, he's been one of the better quarterbacks in the league in these last few weeks. And Corey Davis and A.J. Brown, they're starting to step up. Although Corey Davis has been a little inconsistent lately. But when Corey Davis gets going, it's very tough to stop this Titans offense. And I think this is going to be the blowout of the week. I think that Lamar Jackson, as much as I want to see Lamar Jackson succeed in these playoffs, I just can't see it at this point. I mean, both these teams have very talented running games. But I think of the Titans, they forced Lamar Jackson to throw the football down the field. I just don't like the Ravens' chances, despite the Titans not having a very good secondary. I think the Titans win this by at least 10 points. I think Derrick Henry, he has an unbelievable game, and the Titans win. Next, we have the Bears and the Saints. The Bears, they clinched their playoff spot with help from the Rams. And for the Saints, rumor has it that this is Drew Brees' final season. And with this being Drew Brees' final season, could this be the last chance that the Saints have of winning the Super Bowl for at least the next decade? For the Bears, if they can just play the game that they played in the first three quarters against the Packers, they've got a good shot. The key here for the Bears is to stay in the game in the fourth quarter. If you can keep this a low-scoring game, use your running game of David Montgomery and Cordell Patterson, and complete the short intermediate passes to Allen Robinson or Darnell Mooney. Although his status is kind of unknown because Mooney did leave the game in Week 17 against the Packers. For the Saints, can Alvin Kamara Can any of the Saints running backs get cleared to play this week? I think even if not, they could still maybe utilize Taysom Hill as a running back in this situation. But we saw these two teams play each other earlier in the season, and it took overtime to get the job done for the Saints. And this could be another game like that. I think if the Bears have the defense to keep the Bears in the game from start to finish. But I just think this time around, I think the Saints win this one. I think this could be a double-digit game, although I wouldn't be surprised if it wasn't. But I'm going to pick the Saints. And wildcard weekend wraps up with the Browns and the Steelers. Now, the Browns and Steelers just played each other last week, but the Steelers had benched Ben Roethlisberger to give him some rest, and they rested several key defensive players on the Steelers. Now, when I was sitting around making my predictions, when I was taking notes of everything on Monday, I thought that maybe this could be the game that can literally be a coin flip, where this game can be unpredictable. Because I think with Kevin Stefanski on the sidelines for the Browns, I think that he could be a difference maker. His play calling for Baker Mayfield could be an ultimate difference. But with news today of the outbreak on the Browns roster and the facility within their organization, this could be a tough hill to climb for the Browns. While the Steelers, well, their fan base is probably just going to think that something's up and suspicious, because this is the third time this season when a team is set to play the Steelers, there is an outbreak. But you can't blame an outbreak on playing the Steelers. You just can't, because the Browns have been dealing with an outbreak since week 16. And it's just getting worse over time. I felt like maybe the playoffs should have just gotten delayed maybe a week or two, put everybody in a bubble, like they did for the NBA, the NHL, for MLS. I feel like a bubble would have been the best solution. But with this Browns team having a tough hill to climb, you got to look at the positives. Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt, they could single-handedly make this a shortened game for the Steelers. Can Ben Roethlisberger complete passes down the field? Because Juju Smith-Schuster, who I think is one of the best receivers, if not the best receiver on the Steelers roster, at least I think he is. He's only been seen to catch those short intermediate passes throughout the season. I mean, Chase Claypool stepped up in the passing game, and so has Deontay Johnson. But Deontay Johnson has had some issues with dropping the football throughout the season. So I think this game, despite not having Kevin Stefanski on the sidelines and the special teams coach having to call the plays, I still think the Browns can make this a game. I think as long as you utilize Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt, and you just utilize the running game that's really gotten you to this point, then you got a good shot to win. But I think the Steelers, they win a close one. I'm going to say 23-21. I think the Steelers, they get a game-winning touchdown in the last 2 minutes, and Baker Mayfield throws an interception to Minkah Fitzpatrick with less than a minute left to seal the game for the Steelers. So those are my wildcard weekend predictions. Hopefully that this week puts the Wild in wildcard weekend. Comment your predictions down below. Like, share, and subscribe. And I will talk to you next time.